We are the Late Kick Podcast. We're here coming at you and maybe on you live. Internationally, we've got Toronto, we've got Scotland, and we've got New York City. And we get more ass than a toilet seat. This is a Late Kick Podcast. Yes, David, we see your nipple. Top right, renowned sports analyst, English lawyer, an all-around good guy, Muay Thai practitioner, MMA fan, David Agbaire.
Wow. Gets even more racist every week. I thought you were going to go with the boxer from yesterday at Jagva. How are you doing, guys?
Bottom left, boxing analyst, NCAA football player, sweater aficionado, and a man who's going to eat his heart out this week, that's for sure. Jeremy Asiffo.
I just want to say, before we start this podcast, I'm blessed to commune with you guys once a week and talk about combat sports in depth. You know, I don't know, something about it heals me. And also, you know, I'm kind of in high spirits. I feel like crying today, guys. What a great fight. What a great fight. I feel like...
Wait, let's get through the topics.
One for the ages for sure. Thank you for that, Jeremy, and we're all stoked to talk about it. But bottom right, scumbag of the podcast, older brother to Jeremy, former correspondent for Jazz FM, MMA fighter, and somebody who I'm going to blast double leg as soon as I get back to Toronto. Michael Asiffo. Is that what you're going to do as I'm double legging you?
No, it's more going to be like, hey.
Well, it's hard to throw knees and uppercuts from your back, Mike. And then,
yeah, that's the implication that you can get me there, which I don't think you can.
Mike,
but
I will put you on your back faster than a hooker with a mortgage. Let's be real.
Holy shit, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And finally,
think about that one. It was good because we had to think about it a little bit.
And finally, there's me, avid beer drinker, a man who approaches his target weight every day by a little less. Consumer of alcohol and pasta, MMA fighter, and I don't know. I do some things. All right, I do things. I say things. I'm here. Stefano, Hosko, everybody. Thank you. Can we get a round of applause?
Jazz hands.
Oh my God! I asked for a round of applause, and David legitimately started snapping and rubbing his hands together. Well, David has clearly been to a feminist slam poetry session. Yeah. I have a story about that, by the way, which is kind of funny. But
you went to a feminist slam poetry session recently?
Unintentionally.
All right, we'll get to it in story time. Everyone has stories this week. I think it was a while.
We'll save that for the end. Oh, geez, do these people not know I'm on air?
Wow, professionalism.
It's just my dad, of all people.
Wonderful.
Anyways, let's discuss. I know Mike's gonna have something to say about this first piece of news. We all know how much Mike loves weightlifting. Aspen Ladd is main eventing next. Oh Lord!
Wow! The unprofessionalism of our host here, Stefano. Hosko.
Sorry. Anyways, so Aspen Ladd, after fresh off of missing weight a week or two ago, Holly Holm is out of her main event. Holly Holm in a main event in 2021. What year is it? Aspen Ladd stepping into fights on a week's notice against Norma Dumont to save a card that nobody thought needed saving. This one needed, let's be honest, this one needed the John Jones, Dan Henderson treatment if you follow.
Yeah.
Guys, thoughts and shots?
Honestly, this is just another example of the UFC trying to meet their obligations to, put on a card on ESPN. And yeah, it's just that they're slapping cards together just to put it on a network, and they're not really caring about the quality or caring about the quality enough. And so they're just kind of throwing people on there. Like, who here has seen? Let's be honest. Who here has seen a Nora Dumont fight? Be honest. And we cover the sport. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's funny? I've seen it, and I don't remember it, and I will never be able to remember it.
I don't even know who that is. Sorry, Dora.
Well, there you go. We do this every week. Mind you, UFC 267, which is coming up, they're doing free on if you subscribe to ESPN Plus, and that card is insane.
Yeah,
that card is Freeman Urkaki is good. You know.
Yeah, no, it's a good, but that's the thing. The number, it's not the number of events I worry about because those are good cards. Those are good cards. So like the 265, 266, whatever. It's the fight nights, right? And at least back in the day, or at least when it was the Fox deal, they tried to put together a serviceable card. It just seems like with some of these fight nights, they're kind of slapping these things together. And we've really reached the bottom of the barrel with Marina Rodriguez and Mackenzie Dern. And
all right,
now,
that was a good fight. Don't do that. That was actually a decent.
No, it was. But,
David, no.
On paper,
as a casual fan, I do get the sense that these fight night cards aren't as great as products as what they were, let's say, like 14 months ago. I don't know the reason for that is, but I definitely feel the quality has been lacking a little bit. In my personal opinion.
The co-main event was Randy Brown versus Jared Gooding. Like, I'm trying to say, like, and I'm not trying to be mean. Sorry?
You didn't like Rude Boy Brown?
Look, is Randy Brown a co-main event fighter on any card in the UFC? Okay,
or Jared Gooden for that matter, even worse.
Yeah,
I mean, fun fight. I enjoyed it, but still,
like
this card was not serviceable. But
it's not good.
But you can still get something from the.
We'll talk about this more when we talk about the UFC card, guys. We're going to talk about this more when we talk about the UFC card. Let's keep the ball rolling. We just got a couple more pieces.
We're talking about the same Aspen lad who almost fainted on the scales like 2 weeks ago, right?
Yes.
That's the one, but this is up at 140. This one up at 145. Aspen lad normally a 135er. Okay, in Who Gives a Fuck Bellator news, we've got Chris Cyborg versus Sinead Kavanagh. I wonder if she's related to John Kavanagh. Don't know, don't care.
Yeah. Who?
Yeah, there you go.
We never talked about in Bellator, Michael Venom Page avenging his loss to Diego Lima.
Controversially, albeit, but yeah.
All right, next up,
and this has me a little bit interested because maybe Patricio Pitbull might be moving to the UFC at some point. So as you know, he lost to AJ McKee at 145. Mm-hmm. He says that he wants to get his 145 title back, and therefore he's vacated the 155 belt, and we have a 155 Bellator fight between his brother, Patricky Pitbull, and Peter Quilley. All right.
Fair. Here's the thing. A couple things. One, and less important, didn't Patricky lose his last fight?
Did he?
Yeah. His brother. Sorry, his brother's Patricio. Patricio lost his last fight. No, pretty sure.
Patricio's the 45er.
Oh, so Patricky's the 55er. All right.
Patricio had the 55 title and the 45 title. He lost the 45 title to AJ McKee. Yes. Now he vacated the 55 title, and Patricky's stepping in.
Yeah.
Wait, so you're saying that
title.
Patricky's going to be fighting Peter Quilley?
Yep.
Okay,
yeah,
so Patricky lost to Peter Quilley in May 7th, 2021.
So they're rematching it again? This is for the title? That's what we're doing?
Vacant title.
Okay.
And Dublin.
Okay.
Bellator milking that Irish teat.
Right. They're kind of milking the brother connection a little bit there. The other thing is though, another AJ McKee versus Patricky Pitbull fight, I don't mind. So kind of interested, on that in that front. But yeah, it goes to show you kind of like Bellator. The problem with them is not necessarily that they don't have premier fighters; they just don't have enough of them that you can, reasonably put somebody else out there. But alas, that's.
And finally, in Bellator news, Bellator non-title fights to be Bellator non-title fight main events to be 5 rounds. Okay, Bellator, welcome to 2021.
Yeah, I was about to say, finally. Man. After that Phil Davis versus Yoel Romero fight, they should have done that on the spot, like immediately. But
yeah, I guarantee Yoel Romero knew what he was doing. But okay, in a weird piece of news, BJ Penn to run for governor of Hawaii.
Okay.
Apparently, his opponent is the guy that beat him outside of the lava track.
Don't do
Yeah,
that. Don't
I
do
don't
that.
know.
Don't do that to a good state of Hawaii. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I think just about anyone can apply to run for a position of government.
Yeah.
You know, like
Hey, you know what though? Like,
Or
look, I'll say this: if let's say
politics.
Stefano, sorry, go ahead.
No, just that. No more UFC politicians, please. No more martial arts. Let me not say martial arts. UFC legends running for political offices. No more. No more.
how dare you insult the Vladimir Klitschko, who holds office in Ukraine? How dare you?
And does a
Vladimir
relatively
Klitschko
good
has a
job
PhD.
apparently.
But Vladimir Klitschko has a PhD. Wait, hold on. Let me rephrase that. He has a PhD in sports science. Like that's not like he's a smart man.
Is it Vladimir Klitschko or Vitaly Klitschko? I'm pretty sure it's Vitaly who holds office in the Ukraine.
They both.
That's one of them.
Oh, okay.
They both have
Anyways.
PhDs.
But my point is being though that like, you know what, if any of like there are a lot of smart athletes out there who if they decided they want to hold office, I wouldn't bat my eye at it.
We were kind of talking about this the other day in the group chat.
Yeah, like, you know, yeah, if certain guys I actually think would do a pretty good job in office. And the fact that they're fighters, David can't hear you. But
No, I just hear you. I'm just talking to myself. I mean, I hear
David's just
you.
muttering angrily under his breath.
For real though, like let's get into like the real world. Like, with no disrespect, but like I don't think there's any qualifications as a fighter that necessarily prepare you for the political world, in my humble opinion. And just because you are intelligent for a fighter does not mean like you can hang with like people who've been private school their entire life and groomed for this position. Just humbly.
I'm with David. I'm sick of the whole like political outsider experiment. You know what qualifies you for political office? Previous experience in political office. I'm not going to be like, hey, there's some politicians out there that would be actually really good MMA fighters. Like, no, I'm
Joe Biden.
Maybe those guys in Japan. You see the video of those like old Japanese guys in the Japanese parliament that have like legit judo skills, and they're like, sacrifice throwing each other. A fight breaks out in parliament. One of them sacrifice throws another one. Another one like hip tosses another one.
Yeah.
Those guys might have something for MMA competition.
No, but my point not necessarily is that
like moving along. We got a lot of content.
Yeah, let's move on. Sorry.
We got to keep getting sidetracked on these points. But my point is, All right. So we got a couple more pieces of news here to deal with. Fight announcement. We have a big one coming up, but fight announcement. Derek Lewis versus Chris Daukaus. All right.
I like it.
Yeah. Daukaus is an interesting.
Lewis versus who?
Daukaus. Chris Daukaus. Emerging heavyweight prospect. He's got some good boxing. Guy's a cop, but we'll forgive him for that.
Chris Daukaus is definitely a cop. Never forget. And I will never forget for his brother either. But I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. No comment.
I think Chris Lewis is a good. Oh, sorry.
I feel like he's done well because, oh my God, we're speaking all over each other today. I was just gonna say, I feel like he's done well because he's got great boxing for the heavyweight division. Derek Lewis obviously has heavy hands, so we'll see. This sucks to be Derek Lewis because I feel, number one, he takes any fight, but also maybe this is just one where perhaps his star is a little bit bigger.
Yeah, Derek Lewis is kind of a matchup at heavyweight now, where biting some freak accident, which often happens in a Derek Lewis fight. Derek Lewis is kind of the measurements of how disciplined are you as far as sticking to a game plan, right? And how willing are you to just fight in that specific way where you're going to give him problems, right? Painting, making him swing at air and miss, and then hitting him, kicking the leg because he's in that weird tall stance, possibly employing wrestling. Like he's very much a matchup that, he has some formidable attributes physically and a few skills that make him very dangerous. But it seems like he's kind of the test of whether you're elite or sub-elite in the heavyweight division at this point.
Which is weird because he's ranked like number 4 last time I checked.
That's heavyweight.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
you want to see who's ranked number 10? Now, Moving along, Misha Tate, Caitlin Vera. No one cares.
Oh man.
Sorry, it's 2021.
No, it's just it tickled me. Oh my god.
Sean O'Malley has his next fight against Raulian Paiva. I know you guys probably don't remember who he
that
is.
fight between Paiva and Kyler Phillips, was it?
That's right. Yeah, where Paiva displayed, that was a great fight, and Paiva displayed an otherworldly amount of toughness in the next few rounds. And you know what? He's going to need it against O'Malley. He genuinely will. But after that Kyler Phillips fight, I will not count Paiva out of this fight whatsoever.
Yeah, it was
Especially,
like a 10-8 first round, maybe 10-7, and this man came back and took that fight like a thief in the night. So, yeah, I'm excited for this one.
Here's the risk with O'Malley, too. He's shown certain issues as far as durability, particularly with his legs. Incredibly talented, athletic, sets things up well with feints. But if you keep playing around at the lower levels like this, you might run into somebody that is on their way up and would be more suited to a main event fight with you, and they could really delay the progress of your career. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. I'll add Chito Vera. And I just want to say, I heard a rumor, and you know how accurate Twitter is for the rumors. I heard a rumor that O'Malley has technically not signed like a contract with the UFC that's like worthy of fighting. At least according to somebody in his camp. I don't know. I don't even know the details.
O'Malley confirmed that. He said that he's like, why I want to just fight out my contract fighting a lower level of opposition, and then when I produce some like very high level finishes, you know.
I do get the sentiment, like, and I do understand it in theory, but I think he had no problems facing Chito Vera when he thought he was hot shit. I think part of it is a confidence issue. You know, you can kind of see through when people are kind of BSing you. I think he's BSing people, like a bit to an extent. Because quite frankly, he wasn't afraid to call out all kinds of guys and try to fight all kinds of guys before he ran to Chito Vera. And then after, it's all, I want to fight guys, you know, worthy of my compensation. Right? That's all I'm saying.
And the big one, and this is the big one and the final piece of news, gentlemen. Are you ready?
Sure, let's go. Let's hear it.
Can I get a drum roll? Oh, that sounds like some fine African music. Anyways.
Oh, God.
Africans have excellent drumming skills. Anyways, Jesus, I gotta be careful or I'm gonna get fucking
you're gonna get canceled. They're gonna cancel.
Definitely treading that line. See what America's done to you? Crazy. Man.
Yeah, honestly, I'll tell you something about that afterwards. When we're off air. But anyways, the fight we were all knew was going to happen, but you would never count the UFC out of doing something colossally stupid and not making the fights we need to see happen. Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier. It's done. It's signed. December 11th. It's happening.
I like it. It should be happening. It's a fight that makes the most sense, unless you do some mental gymnastics and throw Justin Gaethje in there. But
well, Gaethje's already signed to fight Chandler, which I'm going to go see live in November.
Ooh, nice. That's going to be crazy. But then, yeah, I guess, you know, give the winner of that the next title shot. Realistically, no more McGregor, man. Like. No,
that's bullshit. McGregor should be getting the title shot.
Right.
He deserves to fight Poirier. He really does. I mean,
yeah, really. We just give the fights to the biggest stars. You're right. My bad.
Come on, money fights. But yeah.
Money. Well, I guess that's all you guys have to say.
Well, no,
I thought we were
gonna excited for this. Like, you know what? We're gonna get a test to see how good is Charles Oliveira going into the fifth round, you know, because we haven't really seen him do 5 rounds against high level competition who's going to push the pace.
That's crazy, Michael. I was going to say the opposite.
He hasn't done high level competition 5 rounds?
I think he has, no?
Kevin Lee?
He
finished that in the second or third.
Yeah, Kevin Lee, he finished that later, and Kevin Lee was clearly diminished going into that fight. So,
Mike, I think it's adorable. You think this will last 5 rounds?
I think my question was,
yeah, fair.
We'll finally find out how good Dustin Poirier's jiu-jitsu is. No.
Kevin Because Charles
I think we're going to
Oliveira's
find out how good Charles Oliveira's chin is.
Yeah. Because Charles Oliveira doesn't really got like a comprehensive takedown game where he's going to get Poirier down there unless
Wait, what?
Poirier.
No. That's false too.
You think that's false? Like, because think about it.
He showed
like,
great wrestling against Tony Ferguson, offensive wrestling, and Kevin Lee, and Jim Miller. He's got great wrestling.
But my thing is like, okay, Jim Miller was like 80 years old at the time of that fight.
And Ferguson?
Kevin Lee was diminished going into there. He missed weight and was like not himself. And then Tony Ferguson was not himself either. So I don't know what the indication like.
Well, Mike, then you're discarding his whole title run.
I know, which is I don't.
Yeah,
wanna,
you know what? Michael Chandler was a lucky punch.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But you get what I'm trying to say though. Like Like I don't know what the indication of like his takedown game is. And even with Michael Chandler, it's not like he was landing takedowns at will. It was, scrambles here, scrambles there. Which admittedly, he's a great scramble guy, and has a really good old school jiu-jitsu style. Like it's like very fundamental based, but it works.
He's got a nice single leg X guard as well.
Yeah,
which I say about a lot of people. But
very underutilized thing though, like the single leg X in UFC, in MMA, particularly the UFC though. But yeah, so like he's a good like there are lots of things to like, and I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. But like I wonder if he does go to that game, can he show the ability to take down Dustin Poirier and control him at will? Dustin Poirier, for his part, isn't really. If he wants to defend a takedown, he will, but he likes to go for that guillotine off of like very old school maneuver where like guys used to go for the guillotine off of the takedown back in the day, like as a kind of a surprise attack. And Dustin Poirier tries to land that like at least once a fight if he's going to the ground. It doesn't work, at least anymore. So yeah, it's gonna be an interesting fight. There's a lot of questions that will be asked going into this one.
All right, so we'll talk about that more as it approaches, undoubtedly. But I think there were some sensuous events over the weekend that we really need to get into and discuss. So, yeah. Transition?
Wait, we're really going to bury the discussion about the ring girls and Brendan Schaub?
We'll talk about that later.
After.
All right, let's get into fights.
For now, it's boxing news.
Wow. What a week of boxing we get to talk about today.
All right, Jeremy, take it away, please.
Oh, did the transition happen? Okay.
Jeremy, didn't you see it? We all saw it.
Oh,
yeah, it came from over there.
As you guys know, I'm clinically institutional.
What?
I'm sure,
Jeremy, are you secretly one of those sentence generating AIs that just strings random words together?
That wasn't random words.
I'm hypothetically scientifical.
Africans say words.
That makes more sense, Stefano. You're doing that too much justice.
Clinically institutional makes sense. Fuck you.
No, it doesn't. Clinically institutional makes no sense, Jeremy.
All right, anyway, let's get to the box.
I'm sure you've heard by now by the time this podcast comes out, Saturday night, we got the trilogy fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. We got to close a chapter on this, and we got to see Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, reign supreme and defeat Deontay Wilder in the 10th with a overhand kind of hook right. It was wonderful. The whole fight was great. The buildup was great. And before we break down this fight, I just want to say one thing about what happened Saturday night. This entire year, there's been like this dark cloud over the sport of boxing. A lot of things like cancellations, a lot of like corruptional stories and things like that. And the problem with boxing, I would say, is that it's not very consistent. if we were to get fights like this consistently against top fighters like this, I believe boxing would be probably the most popular sport in the world. But back to the fight, it was probably the best fight of one of the top fights of this era, I would say.
It was poggers, as the kids say.
It was what?
Jeremy with the.
I said it was poggers, as the kids say.
Okay, I got
No
two
kids say that.
pages
Who
of
says
notes
that?
on this. I got 2 pages of notes. on this.
Pages.
And I rewatched the
Yeah,
fight.
let's hear him. Let's hear him, David. Let's hear him.
Okay.
David.
I can't stop watching the highlights either.
The fight, in my estimation, was scientifically, hypothetically, clinically institutional, in my view. Wow. Subliminally biological for sure.
No, but for sure, I actually agree with Jeremy. I think this was a really exciting fight. But I think part of the reason why it was so good and felt so significant was because of the eyes on it. I don't watch undercard boxing. There are probably bigger wars out there that we just never really find out about, honestly. So I do think like the hype definitely fed into it, but it's great that, you know, you got 2 top contenders like fighting each other. And let's not forget, I don't want any revisionist history happening, because people literally
We
said,
all
like,
didn't want this fight.
nobody wanted this fight, and
I'll be the first to admit it. I did not want this fight.
yeah, and Wilder was right. Wilder was right. Like and we were all wrong. We were like, there's no way Wilder can stand a chance again. No, he improved from the last fight. He looked a lot better. He added some more tools to his game. You know, it didn't go his way, you could say, but you know, that was more as a result of fury than anything he did wrong, in my humble opinion. Although I do think there's stuff that maybe he'll look back on and felt like he could have done better. But yeah, let me jump into some of these notes. First of all,
I just want to say that before the fight, Tyson Fury was all bitch ass. And after the fight, he was all, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
yeah, that's so true.
I hope that Jesus Christ softens his heart, honestly.
I was about to say, I
That's a
want to try and throw that in at some point during the podcast. Be like, oh, Jesus Christ, soften Stefano's heart. I want to throw that in there. But
That
yeah.
was random.
He was
That
trying
was
to
random. Like, really, I mean, I've probably heard him give a speech before, but that was really random.
That's what he does.
Deontay Wilder,
That's him.
after the fight, was like waving him off because Deontay Wilder didn't want to talk to him, like to show respect after. So he was like, I hope Jesus Christ.
He's a proud champion. Deontay is a very proud champion. And let me say this, you know, since I started watching boxing, David, I definitely want to hear your notes. Since I started watching boxing, I've never really been on the Deontay Wilder bandwagon. You know, even though he's right up my alley, you know, power, athletic, bravado. I never really, and probably partly part of that had to do with like the amount of excuses that he was giving for losing to Tyson Fury. But I did gain a lot of respect for Wilder after this fight and became a fan. I definitely became a fan of Deontay Wilder, like a bigger one than I already was.
You know what?
Yeah, let's hear those notes.
Yeah, like literally kind of building off of that. First of all, I think we're all in agreement. Deontay Wilder won that first round. He did pretty much what everybody thought he couldn't do and came out boxing. He had jabs to the body. He was like setting stuff up with, you know, the 1-2 to the body. And honestly, I think, you know, he was trying to set the tone, it was trying to set the tone. And I feel like he was aiming to tire out what was a bigger guy, because Tyson Fury came in as heavy as he's ever been. And I honestly thought like like Tyson Fury looked a little bit tentative from what Deontay Wilder was doing in that first round, because he didn't know whether he was going to, you know, go low and then come up with like the big right, or whether he was like, you know, faking. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say there was a lot of feinting. I wouldn't go that far. Although there was a little bit more.
There was some feinting. Yeah.
There was some feinting. He would
first
feint
round.
downstairs and come up with the check left. You know, yeah, there was definitely.
Yeah, and you know what? I would also say that Tyson Fury was trying to establish that check hook counter in the first, like towards the end-ish of the first round. but he just couldn't really because, like, once again, Fury, I keep getting confused. Deontay Wilder looks sharp, if a little bit tense. I've heard a couple of people say that he looked like a lot of nervous energy, but I thought he looked like sharp and he looked dangerous as hell in that first round.
You
And
know
I
what?
think
And I was just gonna say I could speak to that a little bit. It did seem like when he was going to the body, he was like pumping it out because he knew it was what he was supposed to do, and it didn't seem like he had an eye for it. Like you know, there was a couple times where like he overextended. There was a couple times where he spammed it a little bit.
he definitely
But I do think. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Because he knew. I just want to say real quick because Deontay Wilder probably was looking tense because he knew that he was doing that to set up the right hand. That's the only weapon he has is his right hand. He was doing it because, he was listening to his trainer. But I don't think that, like you said, he didn't really have an eye. He didn't know where to place it exactly. He just knew that if he kept backing him up with the jab, pumping out that jab, he would get him at a distance where he could set up that right hand. Because the second fight, Fury was smothering that right hand, so I think that was probably why he was keeping that.
No, it's for sure, and I think that's credit to Malik Scott versus Mark Breland. And I've been very critical of Mark Breland, like almost like criminally critical.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
why are you critical about Mark Breland? That doesn't make any sense.
Because Breland was his former trainer, and even though Breland is a Olympic gold medalist and a former heavyweight champion and deserves all the respect in the world, wasn't a WBC champion caliber trainer, and you could really tell just with Malik Scott in the year that he had Deontay Wilder in, at least before
never doing the stuff that never doing the stuff that Malik Scott showed him to do.
Yeah, can make it because the one things that go into the body does is it backs the opponent up, and the thing about Deontay Wilder is he's an infinitely better boxer going forward than he is going backwards. And
to that point. Oh, go on.
Yeah, no. So that's basically it. Like I think there was just a couple things I want to build off of that. Is that jab to the body was getting him to go forward, getting him to get loose, getting him to get ready. Yes, he was tense. Yes, he didn't have the eye for it, but at least he was able to get some breathing room until that first knockdown in the third.
I would say that Tyson definitely brought the fury, but Deontay was a little bit wilder. So on that point, though, I mean that the investment in the body jab in the first round was something that gave me confidence, but tentative confidence. Straight shots to the body, and obviously we saw from the last fight is that punch and clutch was a big part of the game of Tyson Fury. It's good against a power puncher because it stops the exchange. And in those exchanges, Tyson's allowed a few extra seconds. He was penalized in the last fight for it, but he's allowed a few extra seconds to really wear on Deontay and tire him out. And that body jab, it was an excellent weapon to just maintain a distance between him and Tyson Fury, as well as to bring the hands lower. And Tyson was kind of confused by it in the first round. He was not pursuing the clinch with as much ferocity as he did in the later round. I think it seemed like, instead of throwing that jab with just flicking it out there and maintaining like a little frame, he was really committing. Deontay Wilder commits on every one of his punches, and he was committing to every single one of those body jabs. And that gave me a little bit of hesitation just because with his style of punching, it's difficult to carry over to the later rounds. Not entirely. He dropped Fury much later, but that body jab will not have the desired effect. It's not going to produce a knockout. It will accumulate damage, but I would have liked to have seen him take a little stink off him. But Fury just did an excellent job. Sorry, one more quick thing. That punch and clutch was there, and one thing that I love that he did was jabbing on his way in. Sometimes he'd smother in the exchange. Sometimes he'd maintain that kind of stockade type position where Deontay Wilder is underneath his armpit, and he's just leaning his weight on him. And one thing he did phenomenally is if Deontay tried to peek out of that clinch, he'd kind of track the head with his hand and just land a beautiful uppercut coming out of the clinch. And that was just there again and again and again. And am I the only one that thinks Tyson Fury didn't look quite as sharp in this fight as he did in the last fight.
Stefano, you might as well just rip all 2 pages of my.
No, you did it. You're right. You're right. And
He looked slow. He wasn't fainting as much. His volume wasn't there.
but again, I think it just came down to, Deontay Wilder was backing him up early. And it's such a shame that when the knockdown in the third happens for Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder kind of abandoned that game plan. And I think, in my opinion, almost in a weird way, the worst thing that happened to Deontay Wilder was getting the 2 knockdowns in the fourth, going back to being a brawler. Right?
Honestly,
I have no idea, first of all, how Tyson Fury made it through that. Like, there were 2 times in this fight where both were literally saved by the bell. Like, he turned Tyson Fury into a panic wrestler. Tyson Fury was attempting a double leg there after that first.
That's so funny.
I think Deontay Wilder's chin should be credited as one of the best chins in the history of boxing, and I'll tell you why. The man does not roll off punches. He just absorbs them flush. From a 270-pound, 6'9" Tyson Fury, he's not rolling with these shots. He's absorbing them flush on the chin, and was still able to absorb the better part of, how many rounds did he have?
Definitely got a legendary chin for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
David, sorry, I want to get you in on this conversation.
No, it's fine. You guys have pretty much said what I have to say. I mean, I don't think, first of all, I think that, yes, the power jabs were part of the reason that Tyson Fury wasn't as mobile, but I also feel like, and there might be a little bit of a lay opinion and the casual opinion, but the fact that, he came in at 278 pounds or something like that, has to do with it. Like, you're not going to be hopping, skipping around the ring when you're that heavy. And I felt like he came in with a very clear game plan, and we really started to see that from round 2, where, as Stefano says, he's punching into exchange. He's literally throwing everything he has, almost in a way that he wasn't doing in the second fight. I mean, let's say definitely not the first fight, but a little bit less the second fight. Like, he's literally going a lot of the times for the power 1-2, moving in and leaning in with it, and then whether he lands it or not, he's clinching, overhooks, underhooks, doesn't matter. Like, he's just grabbing and just putting all his weight onto Deontay Wilder, like Stefano says. So maybe it was the switch in game plan that made him, not need to feint as much. And I also feel like, if anything, in the later rounds, especially, about round 6, round 7, once you feel I'm actually kind of styling on this dude. Yeah, that his head movement and footwork was great. He was moving in and out, changing angles, switching. It was really good. So I think it was he just wanted to, first of all, that first round was so different from the way Wilder fights. I can't even think of the last time I don't even know if I've seen a clip of Wilder hitting a body shot like that. So I'm not sure he was expecting it, but after that, he got into his game plan, was okay, this is working. Then, as you said, round 3, he's beating him up. It looks a lot like the second fight, knocks him down. I think Fury gets shocked in round 4, honestly. And when he gets knocked down, I think we can talk about it later, but I thought that was a little bit of overconfidence in that knockdown for Wilder, because he pretty much walks straight in to that right. And then, for the second knockdown, I think he's literally so afraid of the right that he's ducking his head and trying to head move and
turning away from it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's what got him. But I think once he, sorry, go on.
Oh no, just quickly, I think some of the hesitation in the early rounds that you guys referred to, one thing that I noticed is that Wilder was really trying to punch with Tyson Fury as opposed to punching after him, which is why in the second fight, the volume that displayed by Wilder was very, very low, because he's waiting for his opportunity to land that right hand. But here he was jabbing with Fury too in those early exchanges. And well, trying to land the 1-2, trying to land the left hook on the exit. But Fury made adjustment, and he knew that over the long haul, ironically, as a 270-pound man, he was going to be the one that was going to be able to carry the pop in the shot.
But I think part of that is the clinch, right? And I will say, Wilder did much better in the clinch this fight than he did in the previous. He landed a couple nice uppercuts, sneaky uppercuts in the clinch with the right hand. He would roll over to his right and land a couple sneaky ones through. And he had pretty good commitment to the body downstairs. But it is, if you're not used to that clinch, and I tell the kids at York University all the time, if you're not used to that clinch, it can be extremely fatiguing, like over and over and over again. And it will light your arms and your back on fire. Like, it's crazy how leaning on somebody can just do that to you. And Wilder, I think for the most part did better than in the first fight at like handling the clinch. But eventually when a 270-pound man is on you like that, it's a war of attrition. Eventually it's gonna get to you, right?
A lot of rabbit punches and shots to the back of the head, in my estimation.
I think 2 of the knockdowns could even be qualified kind of like that.
I think some of the knockdowns were elite. Like, for example, I don't know how much the first knockdown was a direct result of Wilder gets into a head. Like, Fury puts Wilder's head into a bit of a headlock. Then as he's letting go, he gets the uppercut, stuns Wilder, hits him with an extra shot on the way down, and he goes down. You can make a legit argument that's an illegal knockdown. But I think
as long as he's not locking the hands or maintaining any kind of control, he was just kind of resting his head. There were times where he played fast and loose with it, but in my estimation, that knockdown, he was just kind of maintaining an open glove and just kind of applying pressure to the top of the head of Wilder. And for me, that's a bit of a gray area.
That's exactly my point. It's like, how much of that is, well, Wilder's ducking his head and Fury's just putting his arm there and he's resting, and how much of that no, you're stopping him. Yeah, on that first knockdown.
On that first knockdown, Wilder definitely did duck into the headlock. And then he rested it. And like you said, it's a gray area. Yeah.
It gets really interesting. Even in the last knockdown, it's like, again, another direct result. Uppercut comes up, and then the floor restarts. It gets a little interesting, but these are the games you have to play in high caliber boxing, right?
I'm not, maybe because I'm biased as a fan, amateur practitioner of Muay Thai. I didn't have a single problem with the clinching. I thought it was probably the right thing to do, and I thought the game plan was perfectly executed. So, as much as people want to say, "Oh, that's not boxing," "Oh, he fought dirty," I didn't see it dirty at all. I thought what are you supposed to do? Like, are you?
If anything, I'd like to see more clinch striking allowed in boxing. Bring it back to the old school rules of boxing, where that's where dirty boxing originates, right? Yeah. There was a lot more clinch hitting. A lot of people were, specialized in holding and hitting in the old boxing rules, right? Because the gloves have the thumbs. The gloves have the thumbs.
Yeah, I'd even go as far as to say back in the day with the Klitschko's and Lewis, like Lennox Lewis was pretty good at it. The Klitschko brothers were pretty good at it.
Did you acquire that skill when you beat his ass, Mike?
Oh God.
No,
Michael, please. I can't give the man credit. I can't.
No, I'm just saying, like, when you were dragging him around the arena at that sporting event, like, did he try to do that on you before you double-legged his ass and took him
let me just explain. None of this
happened. Did he just go quietly into it?
David, you're
explanation needed. You guys are ridiculous. Each time, back to okay. Anyway, another point I wanted to make. I felt because, as you said, Fury was leaning on Wilder so much. By round 7, honestly, round 6, I would say he is gassed. In fact, I would even go as far as say round 3, Wilder is gassed, like completely done. And there's somebody with terrible cardio, like I could feel, because like he had not what's his name? Fury was, as you said, leaning on him, putting all of his weight on him. And let's not forget that Wilder came in the heaviest he's ever been, too. So
and threw more volume than he's ever thrown, generally.
Exactly, right? And what's funny with the throwing word volume is that somehow Fury still managed to, throw out twice as many significant strikes as him. So, although apparently around the same number of total strikes, which is interesting, but he just outlanded him and just honestly outboxed him. But yeah, I thought Wilder looked absolutely spent that third round. Fourth round, he looked good because he got the knockdown. At the 2 knockdowns, I would say. Fifth round was.
I honestly think that's the worst thing that could ever happen to him. It's weird because it's like it gave him the 10-7, but at the same time, he got the 2 knockdowns by brawling, and then as a result, he punched himself out, headhunting, and not going back to the game plan. And
by round 6, he was not going to the body. In fact, from round 4 onwards, like he was
he
not.
abandoned it because he got the knockdowns, right? And
But
Well,
also,
guys, I think we have to talk about this too, because go on.
I was gonna say, I think Tyson Fury kind of got hip to the game a little bit. First of all, he didn't let Wilder lead as much. I feel like, as you said, Wilder was backing him up in those early rounds, but for me, from the second round on, the aggressor was definitely Tyson Fury, which is crazy to say. And I feel like that's probably why, Wilder couldn't, as you said, maybe he didn't have the feel for those body shots. It's a lot easier to like land your shot when the other person is backing, or for some fighters anyway, easier to land your shots when the other person is backing up. But when somebody's coming to you, throwing haymakers the entire time, like you feel like less cool going for like the low body shot, in my opinion. Like you want to like knock their head off too, especially when you land one clean like you did in round 4. So yeah, I just feel like, the game plan was working for for Wilder until it wasn't, because Fury is just a little bit of a lot of a better boxer.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why and I don't think it would have made sense for him to go back to those body shots, because I think Fury would have cleaned them up with like the check hooks. His movement would have been too good. Like I think it wouldn't have been as good as I don't think it would have been as good as people
But
think.
like, what the crazy thing is though? Like you could see like inklings of it, is that body jab was to set up either the right hand coming on the other side or the check left hook coming upstairs. He was like using it as like a step ladder kind of effect to kind of fake come high, right? And you could see little inklings of that starting to happen until the 3rd round knockdown. And then Deontay Wilder was like, fuck it, I'm going back to my old ways. And you know what I'm trying to say? And it's like, that's kind of the worst. That was like number 1, a bad thing. But then when he got the knockdowns, and look, no one's going to hate a knockdown, right? My point is not knockdowns are bad. My point no one's going to hate 2 knockdowns in the 4th, right? And my point is not knockdowns are bad. But what knockdowns do is it gives you this confirmation bias of, if I just punch more and more and more and more, and I headhunt more and more and more and more,
It's a discipline issue. It's a discipline issue as far as sticking to a game plan. You reverted to what he knows how to do, which is punching as opposed to boxing, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately,
though, I did think that Fury looked still really wobbly in the early parts of round 5, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So like,
and I truly think Wilder won the 5th round. It's weird.
I thought that one was a toss-up. I thought that one was a toss-up, in my opinion. Like the early part of the rounds, yeah, but eventually they're like trading jabs, and then like Fury stepping to the side, throwing that hook. Like I felt like that one could have been a little bit of a toss-up. But I wouldn't be mad at anybody who gave it to Wilder.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. Sorry,
can we talk about what a late stoppage this was, and how Deontay Wilder absorbed 2 or 3 rounds of punishment that, quite frankly, I don't think he needed to absorb. I think.
Well, I mean, some people.
I think that boxing has the ability in it for you to get knocked out multiple times within a fight and then still keep fighting. Like clearly, going back into his corner, Deontay Wilder was not a lucid man. Clearly he was not fully with it.
Round 7, he's done. Round 8, done. Like literally at that point, he's like, once again, as somebody with terrible cardio, fighting off of just like instinct. Like
and hurt. Don't forget he absorbed a hellacious amount of punishment throughout that fight.
Yeah.
Flush on the chin.
9, Fury is still light on his feet, dancing in and out. Like that's why I was like, I don't know if like Fury looked bad more than the game plan was to wait for him to tire and then start styling on him. Which is what, who knows?
Well, also the tactical error of Wilder kept going to his right.
Yeah.
Sorry, going to his left, Tyson Fury's right, and now Tyson Fury is able to just load up on that right hand consistently after like the 6th round.
Yeah.
I mean, to go on Stefano's point though on the late stoppage, like I think part of it is like I didn't like how late the stoppage was. I think we're all in agreement here. I think for the most part.
But I don't think you can blame the ref though. I don't think you can blame the ref because
I agree. I think you have to blame the criteria on which fights are stopped. Like I think the ref was very active and very attentive during the fight. I think he did a good job of being hands off when he needed to, hands on when he needed to, right? Yeah, I just think that's the criteria in boxing where it has to change, where
And,
if there's a certain amount of unanswered strikes, I think.
What's wrong with the 10-8 count? Remember when 10-8 counts used to be a thing in boxing and they just kind of went away from that? Like, whatever happened to that?
I agree.
What happened to standing 10-8s?
I also feel like, let's not forget that there was a whole narrative surrounding throwing in the towel and letting Wilder go out on his shield before the fight.
Referees don't pay attention to that shit.
No, I'm not saying the referees did, but like I feel like, and they changed the referee from the last fight. Like I don't know. I just, for some reason, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is the lack of a standing.
I think there's a couple legitimate reasons.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a couple legitimate reasons.
I think like the ref thought that Wilder, after what he saw him do in the fourth, because Wilder looked the same way after the first knockdown that he did in the 10th round, doing that sleepwalking, moving the wrong way. So I think maybe he thought, this is just how he fights. Like, I definitely thought that. I definitely thought this is how he fights. Even though Wilder's eyes look like he's about to, die. I think that's a strong word, but like his eyes.
No, I think that's accurate.
No, those are very accurate.
His
words.
eyes look bad, but like he's
Jeremy,
still.
I'm with you.
I'm telling you, that's why it's hard to judge for the referee.
And you know what? He was still dangerous too. Like
he had the eyes of a.
I'm gonna say this: if it was smaller guys, I think the ref might have stopped it if there's a certain amount of unanswered shots.
Smaller,
but when it comes,
smaller meaning, Jeremy, just to clarify, smaller meaning in size or in like down the card,
like weight class, because
I thought. Oh, never mind. I thought you had a point there.
Yeah, because
I think down
my
the card.
point is being
down
that
the card.
I feel like if it was
big,
less,
not as marquee, not as marquee.
Yeah, I feel like it was.
Oh,
and
no, I'm saying like, but
I don't
weights tend to not throw a lot of volume anyways. So it's like, so that's why, and Deontay Wilder, like we all said, has a great chin. So I definitely think the referee took that into account. That Deontay Wilder has a great chin.
I think in combat sports, and I think we need to weigh the cost-benefit analysis of this, with how few times we see a substantial comeback from a beating like that versus how many people just end up getting brutalized over the course of the rounds. I don't think it's worth it. I think it shortens careers. I think, we're hoping there's going to be this Rocky Apollo Creed-esque style comeback, and it's rare. We, like Mike always says, we all love a good comeback. And it's true. Everyone loves a good comeback. But, man, if we're just weighing cost and benefit here as far as fighters' careers and, shortening lifespans and medical issues, honestly, I think when a fight no longer becomes a contest of skill versus skill, and it becomes a contest of skill versus will, and how much punishment you can endure and possibly land, a haymaker shot, I think that kind of defeats the purpose of the sport for me.
Right. I think that's half the reason why. I think that's half. Yeah, I think, but like, see, this is the thing is that.
I get your sentiments. I agree with it, but I can't go as far as saying like will does have a place in all sports, not just fighting. And you can speak better about fighting sports than I can, but
yeah, right.
But even like basketball players, they say there's like will players versus skill players, and it's the same thing in soccer where
like Will Durant. He's a basketball player, right?
Yeah, Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant. Never mind.
Kevin, not Mike Durant. Kevin Durant would be a skill player, but then you have like
Kevin
will
Hart?
players like back in the day, DeAndre Jordan, or you guys know what I'm talking about. Like
no, I get what you're saying, but I just think that
you can't win a basketball game playing just with will.
Yes, you can.
No, but yes, I get what.
No skill. So if I don't know how to shoot a three or like,
it's not about no skill. It's not about.
That's what I'm saying.
There's fighters. There's fighters. Back to to the topic. There are fighters who rely on their chin, basically. And at what point do we start to die those guys out of the sport because it's not for our faint of heart. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like,
when it's not competitive, you know, if you get like a Chris Levin who is absorbing shots on the chin, or a Vanderlei Silva, and he's returning shots back, right? Obviously, it doesn't make for a long career, but you're still competitive within that fight, right? But if you've got Calvin Cade or Max Holloway, where all I'm doing is absorbing punishments and not landing anything effective back, well, I'm sorry, but that doesn't fit within the purview of competitive sport anymore. You know,
there was a couple Lieben fights that, like, you know, against lesser competition too, that, you know, if I think in today's standards would have been stopped a lot earlier. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
There was a couple, like the Terry Martin one in particular. I remember it was an ass whooping. Darren Elkins versus Mirsad Bektic is another one that comes to mind. You know, there are a couple fights out there. I'm not saying that to disagree, because I do agree with you. Like, knowing what we know now, there's a different era in the way we should conduct ourselves in when it comes to these combat sports, and that should be accepted, right? But what I am trying to say, though, is if you're a fighter and you legitimately are still in it, it's weird. There's a weird kind of existential, like, you get what I'm trying to say? Like a weird existential crisis I'm having as me, the fighter, and me, the watcher, and me, the spectator, of, you know, what do you do in this situation as the referee if every once in a while Wilder lands this uppercut or lands a haymaker cross, or, you know what I'm saying? Can you stop it? Like,
yeah, the rules are pretty much like, you know, until you can no longer intelligently defend yourself.
Wait, is that the case in boxing as well?
I'm pretty sure.
Is intelligent defense a qualification in boxing as well? I'm honestly asking.
No, I believe so. I believe so.
Oh, you're on mute, Jeremy.
Boxing aficionado, save us.
No, David. No, David, you're right.
And Hannibal Buress look-alike.
Oh, hilarious. David, you're right. Yeah, no, David got it right. Yeah, you have to intelligently defend yourself.
Exactly.
I'm just wondering if that's written in the rules, though. Is that like a written thing? That,
you know what? Let's check it out.
Listen, David, please do the research. But I know that when Conor Benn fought Sammy Vargas, and Sammy Vargas like couldn't even see the punches coming, so for that reason he couldn't return anything else, he couldn't return anything because the punches were just coming in so fast. I think that's the clearest example of someone who couldn't intelligently defend himself. Vargas was still on his feet, but just couldn't return anything back because the speed difference was just so great. The skills wasn't like that much great, but you saw who was. So that's my example of non-competition. This still seemed like a competition for the fact that Deontay Wilder's chin and his right hand, those are the two erasers, and it still makes a difference even in the referee's eyes, even when, and I mean,
also, you know, the referees can get snatched up by the press clippings too. They know how big of a fight this is. They know they're in there. They know if they make a mistake,
it's a huge
they're getting fired, or there's a fine coming their way, or they're going to be the talk of like boxing communities everywhere.
But it's not just
like,
that.
People still don't forgive Adelaide Bird for her monstrously bad decision against Canelo.
Wait, hold on. Adelaide Bird had a history of monstrously bad decisions.
Yeah, but my point being is that, like, the refs know, right? The refs. So when Deontay Wilder is kind of sleepwalking out there, they're kind of thinking, do I end it? Do I not? He still got that right hand though. Like, they know, right? That's all.
Yeah, guys, what I want to say, and I think this is the most important thing to bring attention to in the fight. What the fuck was that weird homoerotic entrance for Tyson Fury? When that, like, that twink, yeah, but what was that, like, twinkish gentleman with the long nails doing his, like, striptease at the front? Like,
you never seen 300?
I have. There was no weird. I've seen 300 multiple times. There was no weird twinkish guy with long nails and face paint dancing around seductively. There were women doing that. I don't remember some weird Twinkie guy doing it.
I think it's a play on Xerxes, baby. Like the whole, like, thing. I don't know.
Yeah, but that was women doing it. Why did he pick a twink?
I guess. Fair enough.
This is a guy who's very homophobic. Are you trying to tell us something, Tyson Fury?
Is Tyson Fury homophobic? He's also racist. He's also racist
very.
too.
Who's he racist to?
I don't know. Well, you know what? Maybe not racist, but I know he said the N word a couple times. So
I
What he said
I
to-
know for a fact he said some anti-Semitic stuff before, but
Sure.
like
He's very homophobic too. He did
Yeah.
say, and you know what he said to about
maybe
Vladimir
it's a
Klitschko? He's
gypsy
like,
thing.
Vladimir Klitschko, you're a Nazi. Your people killed my people.
Maybe it's a gypsy thing.
Yeah, well,
Russia,
I
does
think
he
they're called
know that the
travelers.
Russians fought the Nazis, or anyway?
he's Ukrainian, you fuck.
Oh shit, that's racist. My bad. You see how easy it is to be
And
racist?
some Ukrainians were a member of did fight with the Nazis. Some of them fought with partisan groups, and some Ukrainians were even like working in the gas chambers, which is fine. But it's weird to think about it that way because, you know, Hitler viewed Slavs as subhuman. So I
Yeah.
don't know. It's always confusing.
Listen. I hope you guys enjoyed it Saturday night as much as I did because it's not going to happen for another 12 years, at least in this sport.
That's the way boxing works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's sad.
So
Well, guys, let's wrap this up and spend. Oh, David, you had to say something.
I was just gonna say, so some people were already talking about, you know, who is Fury gonna fight next? Should he do another rematch with Wilder? And it's kind of
I'm
like,
good
okay,
on that. I'm good
like,
on that.
first of all, we don't even. I don't even know what you're saying, man. We can't hear you.
Oh, sick.
Okay.
Well, Usyk,
I thought
I was gonna say,
Yeah, Usyk's rematch.
Wait, oh, do you know what? Technically, Michael Asiffo is the lineal heavyweight champion
That
because
is
he
true.
beat the brakes off of Lennox Lewis. That's right. Mike should fight him.
I
Oh,
love
wow.
that. I
Do
love
fights at media events count? I'm sure they count. Anyways, I mean, Mike did take his dignity, so I guess he did take the lineal title from him.
I'm gonna
love
ignore
Michael,
that.
it.
please,
I'm not.
I have
gonna
a family.
ignore
Don't
it.
kill me.
But we don't know if
You're-
Wilder is.
I love your impressions, but your Lennox Lewis one gets worse and worse every day.
Well, maybe that's because the CTE you inflicted on Lennox Lewis from that beating
Oh,
makes his
Here we
speech
go.
worse and worse every day. All right, Mike?
You're-
You get boxed up by Lennox Lewis too. Don't complain. Don't complain.
yeah.
Me?
Okay,
If I
guys.
get boxed up by
Lennox
him?
Lewis is gonna
Look, I'm a
call
Lennox
me
Lewis
and
supporter.
kick
I'm
my
a fan. Mike's the one over here, you know, tossed him a beating.
Man, Lennox Lewis is gonna call me and say some choice words, and I'm not gonna like it. It's
Michael,
gonna-
please don't expose me. You're humiliating me.
All right.
Do you want to move on to Mackenzie Dern?
Yeah,
Sorry,
let's get a
it took me this
transition
long.
and talk
That
about this.
fight sucked.
Wait, before
Hold
the
on. Transition. What point?
Before, I just wanted to say I did finally find the rules at the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combative Sport, and it doesn't actually say anything about intelligently defending yourself, but it does say shall knock down when the result of a legal blow or a series of legal blows when the person's hanging on through or over the ropes without the ability to protect him or herself and cannot fall to the floor.
So I guess that's
like
Yeah,
Luther
to
Ortiz.
me, it
Tommy
seems a
Morrison,
little
Ray
too
Mercer.
specific.
Yeah,
If anything, this is going to sound controversial, but I think that's a little bit too specific for me. I think when you have qualifications for stopping a fight that are too specific like that, you kind of miss some common sense calls. I think if anything, there needs to be a little more, up to the jurisdiction of the referees. Like how the referees,
No, I think
the scientific, probabilical, hypothetical of the clinical,
Institution.
institutional.
I think it's just one specific thing they're saying, like, because Tommy Morrison versus Ray Mercer, for example, is a thing where Tommy Morrison was getting just pieced up on the ropes.
Tommy the Machine
Ray
Gun.
Mercer, right?
Yeah, making rules is hard. It's hard to there's two other elements to it that I didn't mention. So either you're touch the floor with any part of your body, or you're being held up by the ropes, or you're hanging on through or over the ropes without the ability to protect yourself. So that is
Yeah,
very
they kind of got rid of
specific.
standing eights. Standing eights used to be a thing, and especially in lower level matchups. I think standing eights should still be a thing. I think they should bring them back, but they don't have them anymore, and as a result, I even think it's just better from this perspective. Let's
Sorry,
say we take
you're wrong there. A referee may count a contestant out who is hanging defensively on, through, or over the ropes or on the floor. What I would say is, though, watching Olympic boxing, there is like a lot more standing 8 counts. Like in
I'm talking
Olympic,
about
like
pro.
especially
I'm sorry. I
no,
know that it's an Olympic, but
in Olympic is crazy. Like some of them, it was just like you land like a good 1-2, and they're counting you out like from the ring. So seriously,
Yeah.
it was that bad. It was that bad.
Yeah.
So
I don't think
let's move on. Let's move on because we still got to talk about the UFC card. I know we're not going to go into it in too much detail. Probably just the main and co-main, but transition, shall we?
Session.
Ding, ding.
It sounded like you were going to go forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame. Put your name to shit. Awful song. Linkin Park song. Anyways, David seems like the kind of black guy that would like Linkin Park.
We all did it.
Everybody loved
We
Linkin
all
Park.
did.
No, but you seem like the kind of black guy that would still like Linkin Park.
No, let's not get carried away. You seem like the kind of white guy who thinks Mike Shinoda is the top 5 rapper of all time.
Say that again?
You seem like the kind of white guy who thought like Mike Shinoda was a top 5 rapper of all time. Like
Oh God, no! I didn't even like Mike Shinoda back in the day. Ugh.
Yeah, some of it is pretty rough listening back to it. Anyway,
all of it's pretty rough. It's cringy. You love the way I look at you, Mom, when you tell me to go back to my room.
Remember, I like Blink-182, Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, all that kind of stuff. So
all crap. All absolute garbage. That's not even rock. That's terrible. That's awful. David, you've lost your N-word pass. You can no longer.
What about
use
some 41 Fat Lip? I mean, they're boxers, right? No,
all right now.
Okay, so let's talk about this doo-doo platter of a card.
So as much as David's jokes didn't land just now, neither did any of Mackenzie Dern's punches. Lord of mercy. Can we? I would like. This is one of those phenomenons that you see with very inexperienced strikers. First of all, she looked like somebody with a jiu-jitsu player with very mediocre striking.
Stefano, that is literally point 1 of my notes here. Is that I was like,
I read your notes. I stole them.
Right, like a grappler.
There's a phenomenon. There's a phenomenon amongst people who have limited striking experience when they come against a striker who is better than them, faster, more fluid. Instead of they fight down as opposed to fighting up to their striking ability. Right? Logically, if Mackenzie Dern used some of the skills we've seen her use, her jab, her overhand into clinches, she's capable of setting some things up, but she fights down a level of striking because this person has an advantage over her and she gets intimidated and feels like she can't strike at all whatsoever with her, right? Which led to those weird running and out after her face kind of exchanges. She was obviously very scared to duck into clinches in the middle of when Rodriguez was punching. And Rodriguez herself didn't look great. I mean, Mackenzie Dern's defense, sorry I'm rambling, guys, but I'm very mad. Mackenzie Dern's defense was the exact same every time. And she looked like,
in the name of love.
Yeah, her defense, she looked like she was capable of defending the first 2 punches and that's it. Beyond that, her defense fell apart. She squared up her stance and just ate whatever Rodriguez had coming for it. And Rodriguez couldn't take advantage of it. Rodriguez couldn't counter-strike going backwards. She failed to get past the very simple guard of this every single time, with the exception of a few occasions. Like Dern was begging for an uppercut. She was begging for body work or a hook around the guard. Something, please, for the love of God. This was awful. Except for the brief exchanges of Mackenzie Dern's jiu-jitsu, this fight was peak UFC on ESPN.
So
go on.
I wholeheartedly disagree.
Well, you're wrong.
No, you're wrong. Okay, I thought Marina Rodriguez's stand-up looked pretty decent, man. Like
Leonidas, you are wrong.
Okay, well, we can feel that I'm wrong, but I feel like I'm right. I thought, she had some really good long-range weapons, in my opinion. I thought her 1-2s were good. I thought like the way she was chaining. Pardon?
Oh, I just said the ones that didn't land.
I felt like some of them did land, especially when she would follow them up with like some winged shots afterwards. So like the 1-2, and then get Mackenzie Dern backing up, and then keep rushing her. I thought that worked really well. I thought she had an interesting right. It wasn't like your straightforward, like straight right. I thought she kind of corkscrewed it, which was giving Mackenzie a lot of problems, in my opinion. As I said, I thought her clinch knees were pretty vicious, and towards the end of the round 5, like they looked like if she had more time she could have stopped Mackenzie. I felt like Mackenzie Dern could have grappled a little bit more, honestly. I thought she kind of got stuffed for her takedowns as well. And I wrote down here that Marina Rodriguez's ground game was not terrible, but
what
but hold on. Until Mackenzie Dern.
Let the man speak.
Okay, go on.
No,
keep going.
David speak.
No, I said it didn't look terrible, but then as I was writing that, Mackenzie Dern got into a pretty dominant position. I think that was around like round 2 when that happened. When she
was able to, I think she had the single leg, fell to her back, and then was able to hit that beautiful sweep. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on what sweep it was, but let's say it was from half guard. Let's say
an elevator sweep. No.
Yeah, that was sweet. I think Dern fell into that trap of being a pure jiu-jitsu player where dominating position is enough, and she wasted opportunities to land ground and pound on top, quite frankly. Right?
I feel like a lot of the time she would try to get into a submission, she would just run out of time. Yeah,
towards the end of the round. Like 10 seconds left in the round, I'm sorry, unless you're going to fall back on an armbar, you have to be punching and elbowing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's.
I was also looking at. I thought the teeps and obliques of oblique kicks from Marina Rodriguez were pretty good, and by the end of the fight, they were giving Mackenzie Dern a lot of trouble. Like she did not want to advance as much as she did in the earlier rounds, which was good. Was it a barn burner? Definitely not. But I felt like Rodriguez's at least stand up game was venerated in this fight. Like I thought it showed like she can strike with, maybe not with the best of them out there when we go that far. She didn't look like you on her.
Well, I think
your
part of it is that Marina's takedown defense is not good. So she didn't want to get taken down, so she's being a little more cautious and not.
How was it not good? She got taken down once, and then she got the second takedown, which ended up in her almost getting submitted.
No, I mean her actual technical takedown defense. Like if you saw her against Ronda Marcos, for example, Ronda Marcos took her down 3-4 times, and Ronda Marcos, no disrespect to our Canadian girl, is not the caliber of fighter that a Mackenzie Dern is, or even Amanda Hebas, right?
So Mackenzie Dern is so lacking in those fundamental areas of MMA that are pretty standard as far as takedowns, as far as punching into clinches. It's just not there.
Yeah, right. So, but which
she does hit a good right into underhook. But go on.
Yeah, no, which is fair. It's true. It's all fair. But Marina Rodriguez knowing hey, wrestling, my wrestling is kind of weak. She's not going to chain together a 5-punch combination, even if she knows that Mackenzie Dern is kind of begging for a 2-punch combo downstairs after
even if it's
getting upstairs,
Even if it's 4 rounds in and you've seen that Mackenzie Dern is literally incapable of shooting under your punches.
Fair enough.
Literally incapable of it. She didn't do it once. And Dern finally figured it out by happenstance in round 5, I believe, that Rodriguez does not know how to fight going backwards for extended periods of time. We saw in the Watterson fight that she can draw back and counter, occasionally, but she's got that kind of Donald Cerrone syndrome where if you just keep her on the back foot, she's kind of useless. I counted 3 or 4 times in this fight where she took 8 steps backwards from one end of the cage to the other and put her back on the fence.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's just I'm trying to provide.
Wait, Dern did that or Rodriguez?
No, Rodriguez did that multiple times. Dern secured clinches and by Rodriguez just backing herself straight up in a line, 8 steps backwards, and then Dern failed to maximize on that clinch. Didn't land any strikes. Was just hanging onto that Russian drag or that weird position where Rodriguez had that deep underhook. Just these are fundamental skills you would expect somebody who's been in the UFC for like 8 fights to have at this point.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Like I didn't like the fight either. I thought it was a pile of doo doo. But I'm just providing as reasons as to why Marina Rodriguez wouldn't rattle off like an 8-punch combo on a person who was asking for it. Like you're not, if someone's a superior grappler or is billed as a superior grappler, like I'll use my fighting example against Olivier, who is a judo guy. I wasn't gonna be throwing like 8 punches in a row. I kept it kind of basic.
Although you did sometimes, Mike, didn't you?
Huh?
You did sometimes, bro. You stuck around in exchanges, my friend.
Man, you were brawling. Don't do that. You were brawling.
You sometimes, your coach, your very intelligent, beautiful, and smart coach was in the corner yelling at you. It was a good performance. But let's,
my point being that like I wasn't, at least initially, it was low kick, check hook, and 1-2, and then I got a little excited.
Who designed such a brilliant game plan?
What happened, bro?
No, it was all you. All the credit to Michael Asiffo.
No, stop. It was a team effort. You beautiful man.
Dream team.
Anyway, let's see. Okay, are we done talking about Marina Rodriguez versus Mackenzie Dern? Because I know I am. I'm done. David's like, hold on, I had 4 more pages of notes. When Mackenzie Dern,
for this, like legitimately, I had a full page of notes, but you kind of said everything.
When Mackenzie Dern moved her left hand 2 inches to the left, that was very. Why am I doing your impression like Mike? That was very effective.
Oh my God. Okay, other fights. Rude Boy Brown, Gooden. Rude Boy Brown comes up with the victory after Gooden misses weight by, I believe, 4 pounds.
As he should.
Yeah. Look, we talk about making weight and missing weight all the time. I'm not going to get into it. It is what it is.
You gotta make the way.
I'm telling you, it's going to be the
Lennox Lewis because he missed weight.
Huh? Sorry?
Did you beat up Lennox Lewis because he missed weight or something?
Man, one day people are going to ask about that, and I'm not willing to tell this story. So what I was going to say, in terms of the missing weight, Randy Brown had an interesting point. He had an interesting statement here about how, he accepted to take the fight and he's going to get the 20% purse, but he's only realistically going to make $5,000 off of that purse because it's only Gooden's 3rd fight. So he was saying like maybe take more, maybe more of a fine, like. And I thought it was an interesting segment. I wanted to know if you guys like what you guys thought about it. But
no, one rule for all. What I do think, missing weight is definitely some kind of stigma within fighters. Not sure why, but I guess I get why. But also, I think, I'm not a fighter, but I don't know if I agree with it. But I think one rule for all. It doesn't make sense to have progressive fining for missing weight. Like it literally doesn't make sense.
Like a first time, second time offense, maybe. Like like if you
that I could see. I could see personally. But is this Gooden's 2nd or 3rd time missing weight, or
no? But what he was saying, it's just like the idea is that like let's say your purse is not that big. Are you really getting something out of like a 20% purse if a guy's making 15 grand? And is it really feasible for a guy who's making 15 grand off of a fight to give away 20% of the purse? Like,
Christian Yaboa just called.
Don't kill. What I'm trying to say about this is I've always said this, like philosophically, I think guys are cutting too much weight and that's why guys are missing weight and they're dehydrating themselves to an insane degree. They shouldn't be doing this. But at the same time, if you do sign on to say, I will make the weight, like if you sign the contract, say, I will make this weight and you miss it, it is kind of like losing your job.
Just say it, Mike. Just say it. You really want to say it. Just say it.
No.
Just say it.
Like white guys with the N word. Just say it, man. It's all good.
I'll say
No,
with
no,
you.
no.
Mike's like, you
All
know what
right,
he's doing right now? You know what he's doing?
So wait.
David, you know what it's doing? You know what edging is? This is like edging for Mike, you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
He's just like teasing himself, bringing himself closer and closer to saying it before.
No, like I think it's just an interesting segment.
All right, Mike. Yeah, I know. We know what you think.
No, I'm saying like I just
You
think
missed his question. His question was that should Gooden have been charged, or in general, should fighters, right?
like a progressive, like first time offense, second time offense, third time.
I think
offense.
stuff like that, all it does is punish the fighters that are lower down the card more.
Fair enough.
As you're making more money, it has to function as a percentage. If it doesn't function as a percentage, it's going to disproportionately affect them, right? Or fucking Conor McGregor will say, what the hell? I already have this much money I can miss. Or even if it's an increasing percentage over time, I don't know. I just think that's not fair. Because if you're repeatedly missing weight, there's probably some greater issue at hand. And you know,
maybe there should be a new weight class. Yeah,
the UFC's already established things like that with Johnny Hendricks, where they're like, all right, well, we're not offering you a fight at 170 anymore. You know, I mean, I think this fight exceeded my expectations. I think Brown looked good. That front kick obviously busted up his toe very early, but his boxing looked phenomenal, man. He used another little trick that kind of reminded me a little bit of the Fury fight, where after he landed a jab, sometimes he'd find that angle with the frame and land a good uppercut. I think Gooden overperformed. He did well. I think he missed out on some key opportunities. He was finding the legs well of Randy Brown, especially out in the open. But Brown would have these exaggerated reactions, obviously because of his injured toe, where he'd like bring his legs together like Wizard of Oz style after he kicked. And you got to take advantage of that. You have to flurry after that. You have to throw it in combination. But, really missed out on an opportunity though. What did you guys think about Randy Brown? I thought his performance was.
I thought he looked good. It was a fun fight.
And especially the third round, he was clearly like having fun with it. He was super creative with it. His jab was money. It was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
From both stances too. From both stances too, which is becoming more common. It's an Usman thing. It's a Brown thing, you know?
Yeah. So
I definitely feel like he looked a little bit sharper than Usman with it, honestly. Like he's definitely he's one like to watch. But what I would say, he's got to check the leg kick, man. Like he's got to check the leg kick because like Gooden was brutalizing his legs. Like
I think it's a philosophical thing. Like there's a couple of fighters I know who are really good fighters, like really, really good fighters who just philosophically say, I don't check leg kicks. Like they just go, I don't check. Right? They decide not to.
How like Jamaican guys are like against Kinalingas or
that's black guys in general, David.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think a lot of his defense was pulling the leg back, which can work well from the low kick, as opposed to actually checking it, which is fine. Like pulling it out of the way is fine. But yeah, like Mike said, like I think the philosophical difference is making him more susceptible is turning your foot inwards, which gives you a faster, snappier jab, but also makes it more difficult to check leg kicks because your shin's facing inside as opposed to outside.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's ways to compensate with that timing, stepping your foot in and out. It's just obviously with a dislocated toe, it's quite difficult. Gooden was doing well hanging around in exchanges long enough to
land that leg kick at the anyway. So like he was always landing it last, right? And that's the important thing. Like the exchange is, I think Stefano, you've said this before. The exchange is over when you say it's over, right?
Bingo.
There it is. So all that to say that, like, yeah, you can get pieced up with a jab, cross or something. But at the end of that, if you land that low kick because Randy Brown wants to go left or go right, and you landed moving into him, it's attributive damage. Anyway, anything else anyone wants to say on the fight? Or?
I was going to say, Jared. Just quickly, I was going to say, Jared Gooden, there's no way you're going to hurt a man with traps like that. His head is attached to his body with steel rebar, for God's sakes.
Yeah, he's an in-shape gentleman. Unfortunately. I want to talk about this last fight a little bit, not because of necessarily the result or the fight itself, but Nicolau versus Tim Elliott. James Krause came out. Yeah, good fight. But James Krause came out and basically said He made a coaching error thinking that Tim Elliott for sure won rounds 1 and 2, and kind of sort of didn't say he encouraged it, but said they didn't mind taking the third round off, right? I'm paraphrasing from the long ass quote that he put out there, and as a result, Tim Elliott lost by unanimous decision, 29-28 on all 3 judges' scorecards.
Respect to James Krause, man, for being this forward as a coach and admitting his error. I really appreciate that.
I thought it was a man's thing to do, right? Like, I really thought it was a really nice, and this is why I think James Krause is slowly becoming a lot one of the better trainers out there. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say he's got the reputation of like a Dean Thomas or Whitman, but he's getting there. He is getting there.
He's getting there, man. He's got a good stable of fighters under him, title contenders at this point, and himself, I think he's free plug. I bought his or I got it as a gift actually. His wall wrestling DVD instructional, and it's good. The way he thinks about things is very systematized. And when Tim Elliott had Nicolau up against the fence, I could hear the stuff that he talks about in his instructional. Same codes, and they're using it in the cage. I'm like, wow, it's systematized, it works, it's simple, it's really good. And he's one of those great minds that thinks about the game in a systematized way like that. And he has a good, consistent stable of fighters under him that are at a high level. Even if he's not producing champions, he's clearly doing something right.
Yeah. And you know what? He's still a guy, like, I know his heyday is a little past him in terms of his competition days, but he can still go in there and whoop your ass. So
had a competitive fight with Trevin Giles at 185.
Yeah, exactly. So he's still I just really like the move that he did. I'm paraphrasing. I can find the full quote if you guys would like to see it off air, but I really liked what he said there. I thought it was a man's thing to do, and I liked it. I
know David's going to say something about a man's thing to do. He's getting triggered.
I let it go the first time, but then this guy drops it again.
I will not let it go a second time.
Sorry.
There's nothing inherently good about wet men. Okay.
You get what I'm trying to say. It was just I thought it was really it was really big of him. Like, it was really big of him to be like, my fault, put his hand up.
Because men are physically bigger than women? Really, Mike?
Oh, God.
Any other just because men have a size advantage, they have more moral character. The fuck,
yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Men have more moral character than women. Yes.
Anyway,
we got to wrap this up.
Stefano's boy won. Romanov. Stefano, do you want to say something about that?
He did, man. A smothering grappler up at heavyweight that can pick people up and throw them over top of the head. And he has shitty striking. I mean, what more could you want? What more? That is my prototype. I'm sorry. My prototype for a great MMA fighter that I enjoy is somebody that has terrible striking and can make high-level grappling work. Awesome. Love it. Love Romanov. Love his King Kong hammer fists. I love his wrestling. I love everything about him. I love his fat gut. I love his, Moldovan-ass attitude. Give me more.
I can't wait to see him fight Derek Lewis. That fight is less than a year away. I can see it already.
I want it. Give it to me.
Oh, man. Terrible. Okay. We don't really got a story time transition, so anybody got some stories they'd like to share with the class?
What story was I going to tell at the beginning of the podcast?
I can't remember.
I was teasing something.
It's so long ago, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well,
okay, wait. There's two more topics we wanted to talk about. We wanted to.
No, it wasn't it.
Do we want to do a soliloquy about, I think, maybe the heat around the Khabib comments and ring girls died off a little bit?
David, here's my thinking. Next week is an equally sparse card, and there's no boxing event, and we're like nearly 2 hours in at this point.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we'll wrap. Unless there's something quick. If there's like a quick thing you guys want to go through, a quick story time.
Quickly, who you got? Brendan Schaub, Ariel Helwani.
I mean, one of them has a proven track record within mixed martial arts and, has actually done things within the sport. And the other one's Brendan Schaub. Like, I think this is an easy.
I saw the setup from the get-go. I should have seen that.
Yeah, I mean, David, can you give us, David, you muted
I was
yourself.
gonna say we can end it there because that's pretty much the gist of the story. Basically,
Oh,
you got
I just want you to can you just tell us what this beef is over? Is it real?
Shop is basically just talking. I think there was like some article about whether we need Joe Rogan in the sport, which is something we've even talked about. Everybody talks about whether we
Yeah.
need Joe Rogan covering the UFC anymore. And basically, Brendan Schaub jumps out to like defend Joe Rogan, which is admirable in that he brought him into the world of MMA media, and tries to lay the smackdown on all MMA media, including Ariel Helwani.
But did Ariel even write the article?
No, has nothing to do with it.
So why did he bring him up?
Because that's what Brendan Schaub apparently does. Like he just has a beef with people, and I feel like he's called like Ariel Helwani, like shady, sketchy, untrustworthy before, and I feel like that's a thing I've
Seems
heard.
kind of anti-Semitic.
I'm not going to say too much, but I
Like,
mean,
what are you inferring, Brendan Schaub?
wouldn't be. You're
Is he a
hilarious.
banker as well? Jesus Christ. The fuck is wrong with this guy?
Schaub? That sounds kind of. Anyway, I'm not doing that.
We don't get down with that kind of criticism here on the Leg Kick.
But basically,
Plus, he's Canadian, so fuck you, Schaub.
yeah, for real though.
Yeah.
But Helwani literally lays like the smackdown on Brendan Schaub, and he's like, "Buddy, like, how dare you criticize me in MMA media when you're doing the exact same thing? Like, you don't have the stripes to like come to an actual journalist, essentially." And I thought it was really funny to see Helwani talking tough for once. So yeah, if anybody cares, I would definitely encourage you to go watch it.
The one thing I do know about Helwani is that he is still pissed about people saying that he got the information about Brock Lesnar's return through shady means. Like he gets mad, like insanely mad. So there are
Even
moments.
that, it's like.
Sorry.
No, go on. I was just gonna say, like, even that, like, who's gonna be mad at the guy for that? Is it the job of the journalist to fall in line and suck the UFC off? Like,
Yes.
no,
yes.
the journalist's gonna be. That's what it's turned out to be. But the journalist should be at odds with institutional power. So you know what?
No, it's true. Like, I'm just saying, like, there are moments where these journalists don't really, like, they do have their values and they step up. And I think it's just one of those things where it's like, you can't lie on somebody's name. If Ariel is convinced that, like, I'm just using this as the example because it's the one that comes to my mind, that because Joe Rogan put it out there, and he doesn't really hate on Joe Rogan per se, but he just hates on this line of thinking that he got the information through shady means and released it on shady means, and he's upset about that and he wants to stand up for himself, then go ahead. So if he's going to stand up for himself in this one, I'm actually Team Ariel on this one. Like,
and Brendan Schaub was using literally the most common bully boy techniques. He's like, okay, if you've never been in the fire, if you never stepped into the fire, you're not allowed to talk about MMA. Joe Rogan, well, he's never been in the fire, but he's watched more fights than everyone. And it's kind of like, man, your argument is so intellectually dishonest. Like, nobody can take this guy serious. With all due respect, I'm sure he's a great guy.
Schaub, you're doing the same thing as Luke Thomas and Ariel and all those people, except you're doing it worse. Except you're doing it at a 40 IQ level and saying good douche every 15 seconds.
And apparently he pays for his guests on that Taco Tuesday show. I don't know what it's called. Food Truck Diary.
Does he? Is that real?
Allegedly, he pays for it, or he says, if you don't come on my show, you'll never go on Joe Rogan's show. Allegedly. That's definitely why he wants. Man, you got to watch it, man. It's an interesting, like, 10, 15-minute rant. It was beautiful.
Oh, Helwani exposed that in the clip?
Like, yeah, he put the smack
gatekeeping. I mean, that's what Schaub really is. He's just a gatekeeper to Joe Rogan, right?
Man. But you know what's crazy, though? You'll even see things like, I mean, we'll talk off air, but, like, this whole kind of boys club between Rogan, Schaub, Callan when he was there.
It's the club where you need at least one sexual assault charge to be a part of, right?
That's the joke I was about to make. That's hilarious.
I'm reading your mind, David. I'm in your head.
Oh my God.
Man.
I'm in your head.
In my head. Okay. Anything else we want to talk about before we tie a bow on this podcast?
Can we tie it up? Because I actually have to go.
Yeah, same here.
I'm okay with that. It's 11 o'clock here. So.
Yeah.
Mike,
Let's
stick
get
around for 1 second afterwards because there's just a couple off-air things I got to ask you.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay.
Yes, yes,
All right,
Professor.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Man. Like,
All right,
Guys,
friend the children, somebody.
yeah, I'll throw these children. Listen here, children. All right. I hope that Jesus Christ softens your heart, and I hope that you subscribe to the Leg Kick podcast. And if Jesus Christ doesn't soften your heart, may you eat a right hand from Deontay Wilder and never see the WBC or lineal title ever again. I think that's about it. That's all I've got.
That's actually a really good Tyson Fury.
David, you're muted.
Oh man.
I'd also like to add in the additional threat of if you don't subscribe to the podcast, may you have to watch that weird twinkish gentleman doing his 300 dance for all eternity.
I don't like the tone you're saying that in. I don't like the tone. I know it's a word used by gay people, so it's technically not homophobic, but it just feels wrong, you know?
I definitely thought Michael. I just want to say I definitely thought Michael was greenlighting you with the man enough with the man comments.
I low-key
weird energy.
I low-key was doing that on purpose. I saw him kind of do one of these the first time. I was like, all right.
He did like the Manchurian Candidate, you know. He's like, you know.
I saw him twitch a little bit. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna just keep going. But anyway,
man, enough.
Yeah, in this crazy mixed up man's world.
This is a man's world.
In this crazy mixed up world where men are just out here suffering and doing the work while the women aren't doing anything. No, I'm kidding. Love you all, women. Just make sure that you remember you got 3 things in life. You got life, you got family, and you got this podcast. Take it easy, everybody.